Good morning, our esteemed viewers. I welcome you on GBS television, and this is your lovely program, which is called In Focus. In Focus is a program whereby we want to know more what is happening exactly around the world, around us. So today, I have one guest, and he's a special guest. His name is Dr. Peter Baofu. He is from USA. He has written 178 series of books, and also he has been doing interviews in more than 135 TV stations around the world. And today he is in Malawi and on GBS TV. He has got something which is very, very important, which can help you, and also it can empower you. So I hope that our viewers, you'll be there to watch this in Focus program so that you can benefit also through our guest, Dr. Peter Baofu. So, Dr. Peter Baofu, I would like to welcome you to Malawi, and especially on here, GBS TV. What is it that it has brought you on GBS TV? What is it that you want to talk about?
Well, just for introduction, I'm an American visionary and author of 179 books in all fields of knowledge in the social sciences, the natural sciences, the formal sciences, and the humanities in relation to the mind, nature, society, and culture. Okay. And I have been in more than 130 different countries already around the world in all civilizations. And I have been interviewed on TV around the world in relation to my different visions of the human future in all fields of knowledge. So I do that because I would like to understand humanity on the ground, not just by reading books, let's say from the library or something like that. And I want to provide some realistic solutions to global problems affecting not just one country, one culture, but the entire humanity. And that's exactly what I do. And the reason that I come to Malawi is part of that global project that I'm doing. So in a way, that's very historically unprecedented for me, for anyone to do something like that.
Okay. So you have talked about global problems. What do you think are the global problems currently?
Well, there are a lot of different problems nowadays. We can talk about the war in Ukraine. We can talk about the dollarization. We can talk about the globalization. We can talk about the rivalry between the US and China, for example. We can talk about the rise of the non-alignment movement in the world. We can talk about many other issues. We can talk about the problems confronting Africa right now. There's another issue which may be very interesting to the people here in Malawi and also in Africa.
Yeah. So, do you think Malawi is also included in the global problems?
Oh, sure. What's happening in Malawi can also affect the rest of the world, just as what is happening outside Malawi is also affecting Malawi too in a major way. Take a look at the economy, for example. There's a very good example that the economic situation in Malawi is affecting Malawi, but also in some other countries, and conversely, the rest of the world is affecting Malawi in a major way in the economic dimension.
Okay, so people would like to know what exactly is the cause of those problems, or if you analyze them, what are these problems?
Well, there are a lot of different problems. Maybe I can, for the sake of convenience, I can divide them into domestic issues and global issues, and see how they affect each other in the economic dimension. Let's talk about the domestic first, and then we move on to the global dimension. In the case of Malawi, the first thing that anyone can see when they come here is poverty. The last time when I looked into the figure, the income per capita in Malawi in terms of purchasing power parity is only about $1,500, roughly speaking. It may be a bit more, maybe a bit less, but that is quite low when you compare with some other economies. Even in the case of Africa, for example, some of your neighbors, let's say in South Africa or in Rwanda, for example, has higher income per capita than yours. So, but on the other hand, some other economies are very comparable to yours. Madagascar, for example, and Zimbabwe, for example, and some of your neighboring countries, Congo, all of them are very comparable to yours. So if you want to ask what is the problem, what are the major causes for poverty in this country, then I said, well, there are many of them. A good example to start is about the agriculture. Because even though agriculture accounts for only about a third of the GDP in Malawi, but then the majority of the population, the labor force, works in agriculture. So the economy is quite dependent on agriculture.
Yes.
Look at the exports that Malawi has to other countries. Tobacco is a good example. There's more than half of the total export that Malawi has. If you account for sugar, for tea, and for coffee, all four already account for more than 90% of the export in Malawi.
Yes.
So it can tell you how dependent Malawi is on agriculture. So that's a major cause of the poverty. Why? Because too much dependency is not good. Every time when the commodity prices go down, for example, then you suffer. For example, look at tobacco. It's a good example. Now there's more and more. You have the anti-smoking campaign around the world. Now they have non-smoking sections everywhere you go, and people become more aware of the health risk if you smoke a lot. So the demand for tobacco is going down over time in terms of on a per capita basis. That means that your earning is going to go down also because you depend on exporting. So that is a major cause of the problem. And plus, in relation to those agricultural production, I also know that Malawi is also produce quite a bit of cannabis. Some of the drugs which are used not just locally but also in other countries. So you are exporting them too, and that can be a major problem, not just in terms of health risk, not just in terms of the income, the revenue problem, but also because of corruption and insecurity, which tie up with a lot of gang warfare and corruption within the police sector in Malawi. That's a major serious problem here. So you talk about the causes, so those are the causes and also the consequences too. So that is not very good in terms of economic development. But there are many other causes too. Climate change, as you may know, is also another one. Dependency on the fossil fuels is also another one. Why now we are related to international situation. The war in Ukraine, by the way, is also affect a lot of prices. The prices for food, the prices for fuels, and all that. And Malawi is dependent on quite those imports. Fossil fuels and those foods that you are importing. So when the prices go up, you suffer too because you don't have much to buy now if the prices go up. So there are a lot of different causes of the poverty in Malawi, and these are some of the examples, and we can start with those examples, for example.
So now, as in Malawi, we are in this state whereby we are in poverty. So you have talked about agriculture, over dependence on agriculture. Do you think there's something alternative as we are in this situation? Do you think there can be another way which can make us to now economically grow in Malawi?
Yes. It is not just unique to Malawi. In fact, in many other countries that I have gone to, especially those least developed countries, they have the same problems. I often propose, for example, one solution is for you to diversify. Now, there are two ways to diversify, and I think that you should do both, not just one. One way is to move from one agricultural sector, in which case, let's say you focus on tobacco, tea, coffee, and some other things. I think that you should become less dependent on that and try to grow some other crops which can allow you to earn more or become less vulnerable to any fluctuations in commodity prices. Now, which one should you go to? I think that you should listen to the local farmers because they are the people they know best what to grow and how to make money. So I think that one solution is for the government to help the farmers and listen to them, ask them, okay, how can we help you to grow alternative crops, not just tobacco again and again and again, or coffee or tea or sugar. Those are your four major exports. Ask them, is there another thing that you can do? We support you to help you to grow. You can give them some subsidy, you can give them some tax breaks. For example, I'm quite aware that one of your previous presidents were trying to do that. And he was quite successful, but then that help was cut off by subsequent governments, and now things get back to that problem again. So it's not that no one had done that before. You did. You were successful in a certain way, but then you did not continue. So I think that's one way. Another way is for you to move from agriculture to other sectors of the economy. I think it's time for you to do more in manufacturing, for example. In the service sector, tourism is a good example. In fact, in a way, I'm one of them. So I know what it's like to be a tourist. So I think that the government can do more. Now, Malawi is poor, and Malawi doesn't have a lot of capital. So where do you get the money to invest into manufacturing and service sector and all this costs money, right? Yes. Where do you get the money from? Yes. Well, another thing that you can do is to attract foreign direct investment from other countries. Encourage other people. Nowadays, I know that China is investing a lot in Africa. You can ask them, you can ask India. There are many other countries now, they are investing a lot. Encourage them, give them some incentives for them to come. But for you to encourage to come to invest in your country, you have to improve some of the problem. Corruption is a major problem in Malawi. There's everywhere. I learned this firsthand as soon as I arrived from at the airport. Even security police asked me for money openly, shamelessly. So this is the major problem that you have to fix. And also insecurity. I also noticed that some of the foreigners, they do business over here, they were shot and robbed at gunpoint. Some of them were Chinese and some of the foreigners. And the criminals target those business companies and they try to rob them. Now, it's difficult for you to encourage other people to come and invest in your country if you cannot provide security, if you cannot provide any safety from corruption. All this harassment, it increases transaction costs, it harasses a lot of people, it intimidates a lot of people. Why do you think other people will come to you and do business with you, invest in your country, help you develop your manufacturing and your service sector if you treat them like this? And also infrastructure is a major problem in Malawi. You look at the road, it's very bad everywhere.
Okay, before you continue, if you see, as a Malawi, we have we can have internal problem, like as you are mentioning, corruption and infrastructure. But when you talk, globally, there is what we call global economic. So don't you think that it's also one of the causes, global economy is also causing the problem in Malawi? Because I've heard global politics. I've heard that some other countries, they have their policies which deliberately disturb the economies of the poor countries.
This is another one that I just mentioned at the beginning of my answering your question, and I said that they are domestic and global. There are also a lot of global issues which are affecting Malawi in a negative way, more negative than positive. Let me give just one example, the war in Ukraine. The war in Ukraine is a proxy war between the West and Russia. Okay, each of them, both of them, are using Ukraine for their own domination. Okay, it's not one versus the other. Both of them try to control Ukraine. And in the process, Ukraine is being destroyed in that war. Okay, now there are consequences. One consequence over here is that Ukraine and Russia, they export a lot of commodities and natural resources. Now the war broke out. Okay, some of the crops cannot be harvested. So the price are going to go up for some of the food. And also fossil fuels and all that. Gas, oil, and all the price are going to go up. Why? Because the Western allies are imposing massive sanctions on Russia and do not buy anymore from Russia. But then the prices will go up. Look at Europe nowadays. You are crying about the prices. The Europeans are also yelling right now about the high prices, about oil, gas, and all that. In the US too, you have some of the problem. And not just them, the rest of the world, many of those countries in Africa, by the way. Just in case you do not know, do you know that South Africa now, they just said to Russia and Ukraine that we are trying to mediate and have a peace process for both of you. Why do they care? The reason that they care is because the war is affecting the prices of food and fuels in Africa. Many African countries are poor. They are importing a lot of commodities and all these fossil fuels from those countries. And now the prices go up, they suffer. Poor countries suffer because the rich countries are fighting. You talk about the global problem now, that affects Malawi too. The prices here are also going up. The fossil fuels, you go to the shop, for example, the prices are not that cheap, even for a local African country. And that's a serious problem. That's why it's affecting you. Another problem is the sanctions. As you know, Western powers are kicking Russia out of the international transaction system, the SWIFT. And they ban a lot of import from Russia and sanctions any other countries who care to do business with Russia. Okay, they force everyone else to side with them. Now, that is one consequence is a lot of people now, a lot of countries now are trying to find alternative to the use of American dollars. Do you know what happened? Western powers have confiscated more than $600 billion of Russian foreign currency reserves in Western banks. They confiscate all of them, and the U.S. just passed a new law allowing the U.S. to use those money unilaterally. Now, if you are the person who invests or put all those money in foreign currency in the U.S. and all that, and they take all this money from you, do you like it?
No.
Okay, that's why a lot of people are afraid now. Look, I see a law on this. France and China a few months ago just signed an agreement for the export of natural gas in Chinese yuans. We are talking about France. France is a major ally of the U.S. Why is even France doing that? Because France they want to search for strategic autonomy from the U.S. This can happen to them too one day if they disagree with the U.S. Now, look at Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia used to sell oil denominated in American dollars only. There is an agreement more than 40, 50 years ago. Now, they signed an agreement with China. Now they sell oils in Chinese yuans. Why did they not use American dollars? Because the Saudi prince, by the way, he's afraid now because he become more and more disagreeing with the U.S. And Biden called him the pariah in world affairs. So now Saudi Arabia try to get away from it. And they understand that eventually Saudi Arabia too will be the next target. If they ever disagree even more, they will put all this money, they confiscate them, they can sanction on them, so that they want to get away from it. Brazil, by the way, under Lula, just in case you follow the news, is also saying that that they are asking BRICS now to set up a new international currency so that they can get away from the use of American dollars or euros. And Brazil and Argentina is doing that. Iran, Russia, and other countries are setting up what they call the Asian Crediting Union to settle all those transactions not in American dollars anymore, in other currency. In Southeast Asia, for example, ASEAN, they had the meeting, a summit a few weeks ago, and they made the announcement now they are setting up an Asian Monetary Union as an alternative. Why? Because everyone now is afraid of the use of American dollars. They weaponize American dollars now. They can take your money if you do anything which you disagree with them. And Euro too, by the way, because the EU is also imposing sanctions on other countries too. Look, people are looking for alternatives, not just one alternative, multipolar world. Get away from it. And just in case you don't know, even in Africa, Eastern Africa and Western Africa, some of the countries now are also looking for alternative. Look at Zambia, look at Kenya, look at Ghana and all that, and Nigeria and Egypt. They are also talking about looking for alternative currency. That's one thing, de-dollarization. So that's affecting. Another one, by the way, is also a global issue, is the U.S. monetary system. Every time when the U.S., because the American dollar is the international currency, every time when the U.S. increase the interest rate, you have a massive outflow of capital from other countries to the U.S. because of the rise of the interest rate. So that means that many of those poor countries, including Malawi, but and African countries, are suffering now because all those capital that they need to invest are flowing out of the country. Sri Lanka, by the way, had a financial collapse a few weeks ago because of that policy. So some countries, the economy collapsed because of the U.S. monetary policy as an international currency. So there is consequences. And that's why what is happening internationally is affecting local economies. And that's why a lot of people now are talking about de-dollarization. We are moving in a new world order now. And Malawi too is also talking about that. Do you know why? Because Malawi now is experiencing a foreign reserve shortage. Do you know that?
Yes, we are.
And the government is thinking, what should we do now? Because without those reserves, without those foreign currency, you cannot buy things. And in the older days, you can only use American dollars or euros or some other international currency to buy. But if you don't have those currency anymore, how can you buy? They don't accept your local money. Kwacha is not accepted internationally. So now they are looking for alternative currency to trade locally. And people are doing that in Africa even. So this is what you mean by the global context. Yes. So the global context and the local context are affecting the economy in Malawi. You want to know why you are poor like this? Those are some of the major causes and consequences, and the solution too.
So in this case, because America is the biggest country, and in politically and also economically, but we as Malawians, we need to survive. So as a doctor, Peter Baofu, you are in Malawi. What do you think we Malawians we should do? Should we fight against US, or what can be the solution?
I have already mentioned one solution domestically, and I can mention another solution internationally. One of the solutions that I just mentioned to you is that you need to diversify your economy in two ways. Way number one is that you need to diversify from one agricultural dependence on tobacco, coffee, tea, and sugar into something else. And you need to talk to the local farmers about that, because they know best what to produce and how they can earn money. Don't just impose what you like on them. Talk to them. Work together with them and say, what can we do? The government can help you. What can we help you to produce something else? Not depend on so much on these four crops. Number one. Number two, you need to diversify into manufacturing and other sectors of the economy, like tourism, service, banking, and all that, and education and all that. Those are very important too. Now, you may ask, where do you get the money? As I said before, you need to encourage foreign direct investment into Malawi. There are a lot of people out there, a lot of companies and countries. They have a lot of money now. China now has the largest foreign reserves. Okay, they have tons of money to invest. So if you want to do business and want them to invest, and they are also very good in manufacturing, so you need to find a way to encourage them to come here and invest, so that you can diversify your economy, not just in agriculture. But then the problem is, how do you encourage them? I said, you want to encourage them to come. All those other countries, they want to invest in your country. First, you must provide security. Now you don't. I told you before, there are quite a lot of people here, and some of them are foreigners. They are shot and walked on the street like this. Okay, that's a major problem for them. Insecurity, and from businesses are afraid to come to you. Number one, corruption. I told you before, I experienced that firsthand at the airport. Once I arrived, within an hour, they treated me like that. I know how corrupt they are. So this is a major problem when you do business, because no matter what you do, you need to pay anywhere you go, and that increases the transaction cost of doing business. Okay. Number three, you need to improve your infrastructure. As I take the taxi, the bus, whatever, to move around, I know how difficult it is to move around in Malawi. The transportation to roads is awful. Okay, and water and electricity is not necessarily available to everyone. And those who are well-to-do, yes, they are okay. But how about the majority of those? Okay, so those are the things that you need to improve to encourage them. And plus, you have to give them some incentive to come, so that they can invest in you. Otherwise, they can invest in someone else, because they are losing money over here. When they invest in you, they have to pay for all these problems. They rather invest into another places where they can earn more money. That's what they do in business. So you have to give and take. You want something from them, you have to give something so that they can allow you to come. Just like if you are interested in someone, you have to court the person. You have to see what you can do to make the person accept your offer.
Okay, I want to take you away from Malawi, because the big countries are fighting, and that has also brought poverty to other countries. Now, as Peter Baofu, what is your advice? What do you want the world to do so that other countries can have that economic stand? What do you think, as for example, America, China, what do you think they should do?
Unfortunately, contrary to what you may expect me to say, unfortunately, the world that we are facing is divided. It's not unified.
Yes.
Okay, so if you want to talk to Western countries, they have their own view for their own interest. If you talk about the Eastern countries, they have their own views for their own interest. If you talk about, let's say, about African countries, they have their own interest too. Let me, because we're in Africa, so I can say a bit more about Africa. The position by South Africa is interesting because it stands for the spirit of some other African too countries. For example, the government of South Africa, in response to the Western pressure for them to side with the U.S. and the West against Russia, you know that Putin may come to South Africa. They may, so we are waiting. And a lot of Western powers are pressuring South Africa not to allow him. If they do, they should arrest Putin. Now, that puts South Africa in a difficult position. On the one hand, South Africa always said, we remember Russia and the Soviet Union. When we suffered from apartheid, who was helping us?
It's Russia.
Not the Western powers. It was Russia, the Soviet Union, who was supporting the African fight against apartheid. And when you need them the most, they were not there. And the ones who were there were Russia. They help us when we needed them. Now they need us, we abandon them. Is that what you are asking us to do? So I can say I was in South Africa a few weeks ago, and I spoke to a lot of people, and that is the common view by many people that I have met. Some of them disagree, but the majority of them said, no, how can we abandon Russia? They help us when we needed them. And now we have to abandon them now. And yet those people, they asked us to sign with them. They were not with us when we asked them. They support apartheid at that time, including the US, France, Germany. And now they're asking us to help them. But I say, where were you when we needed you? You signed with the white racist regime. So a lot of South Africans, they remember the history. So now they are not willing to start. They say, just leave us alone. We're not starting with anyone.
Okay.
We don't support either side. And that's why South Africa say we offer to mediate the peace process between the West and Russia in Ukraine. That's why some of the African countries, just in case you do not know, offer a mediation process to Ukraine and Russia and the West, and say, we Africans, we'd like to mediate for a peace process. There's something that you can do. Non-alignment. Okay. You don't side. Why? Because if you side with one side, the other side will punish you. Yeah, and then you will control by this side.
Yes.
But if you go to the other side, this side will punish you.
Yes.
And this side will control you.
Yes.
So if you are weak, either way you go, you get punished and you get controlled. The best way is that you don't side with any side, you are nice to him, you are nice to him. If he tries to punish you, you ask him for help, but you don't side with any side. You don't go to war against any one of them by siding. This is exactly what Ukraine did. They signed with the Western allies, now they get bombed out of their country. The country is totally destroyed in many places. Okay, is that what you want? And now Ukraine is more and more dependent on Western powers.
Yes.
But is that what you want? And the other side bomb the hell out of you, this side is controlling you. What is your freedom?
I want to ask you a
So
question.
that's why South Africa is taking a very interesting position and say, we don't side with either side. We offer a peace process for you. You want to fight each other, we don't side with you to fight them because you escalate the war. Yeah, you see, if I help you now, I send troops so that we can go and fight them. You are escalating the war.
I see.
What you should do, de-escalate. Offer a peace process. Don't fight. I don't supply weapons. I don't supply weapons to you. I don't send soldiers to help you fight them, and I don't do the same thing to you. I want two of you to talk. Stop killing. Stop fighting. I help you. I don't side.
Okay.
I don't help you to fight them. I also don't help you to sanction them. I just stay out of it. Both of you want to fight each other, that's your own business. But me, I want to help. But I cannot come with you against the other side. Okay. Because you escalate, and when Russia and the West fight, become more escalating, you might have another world war. And that's even more dangerous than you would like to have. So that is one of the solutions from African countries over here. I say, learn from your neighbor, South Africa.
Okay.
By the way, not just South Africa, so many other countries nearby are also thinking like that too. That's why African countries, they don't really side with Western powers, also don't side with Russia. They try to nice to both, but not commitment to any of them to fight.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much for the detailed explanation. Our viewers, we also appreciate for being there to watch the Infocus program. I'm sure you are getting the details of, from our guest, Dr. Peter Baofu. Yeah, he has experienced a lot with, what is happening around the world. Global economy, politics. So as Malawians, I'm sure that what we have heard today, also we can think about it, and also we can see the world through what we have heard in today's program in Focus. So my last question to you is that you have told me that you stay in USA, but I think you belong to China.
No, I'm a Chinese American.
Chinese American.
Yes, I'm a U.S. citizen. My country is the U.S. I'm ethnic Chinese because in America you have a lot of Americans. You have black Americans like you. They look like you, but they are not white.
Okay.
You also have white Americans, or European Americans. They are white, but they don't look like you.
Okay.
You also have Latino American. They are not white, really. They are not blacks. You also have Native Indians. They are Native Indian Americans. They are different. You also have Asian Americans like me. So yes, we are different. We are not white, but it doesn't mean that Americans are only white people. You need to go to America to see for yourself.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah, you not just heard that, you should watch them too.
Okay. So you personally, you don't support the war in Ukraine?
No, personally, my view is what I do for my academic works. I never support any war.
Yeah.
If you read my publications, I have read more than 179 books by now. In none of my publications, I never advocate. I have never advocated war, and I think that war in the end does not solve much of anything, and we need to promote peace. So I always provide a lot of solutions that when people fight with each other, I don't side with them because you escalate the situation. Let me give you one example from someone like you. There's a black American, his name is Muhammad Ali. You understand me? Muhammad Ali.
I heard about him, yeah.
In the 1960s, during the war in Vietnam, he was drafted to fight in Vietnam against the Viet Congs.
Okay.
And he refused. And people said that you are not patriotic. He said, no, I am more than patriotic than you are because, number one, I have no problem with the Viet Congs. You argue with them, I don't.
Yes.
They never bother me. Okay, I'm a black. I mean, me mean Muhammad Ali.
Yes.
You say, I never have problem with them. Why should I go and kill them? They never bother and kill me. And I rather want to be in a peaceful world. I used it as an analogy. Now, look back, now he was regarded as a hero in American history. Okay. I mean, he stand up. Okay. I don't believe in. I rather make love than to make war. You understand that the cliche in the 1960s. I think that the situation in Ukraine, I have been interviewed many times before, and I think that they should de-escalate. They should stop supplying weapons to encourage them to fight each other. And I think they should stop fighting and start talking more about the peace process. Spend more time talking about peace than more time talking about fighting, sanction, weapons and all that, because you are escalating more and more. Do you know that the EU is even imposing a new round of sanctions, even more massive sanctions? You see that escalating again. And the US is sending more advanced weapon now to Ukraine. You see that you are escalating.
So, as we are going towards the end of the program, maybe you have something to say. I would like to give you also a chance.
No, maybe the last thing that I would like to mention is that I also focus, you have a crisis in relation to fossil fuels. The fuel prices are increasing. A lot of people are complaining. And in that regard, I think that it's also time for Malawi to switch to renewable energy. Like biofuels, solar power, wind power, and all that. I think that is the trend of the future. Plus, pollution here is a lot in Malawi. So I think that the switch to renewable energy can help you not just reducing prices, but also give you a healthier environment too. I think that is long overdue now, so I think that it's time for you to act on it, and that's very important now for the economy. I can see that the rises in fossil fuels are also hurting the local people. How do I know that? Because I spoke to the local people and they are already complaining to me this problem more often than I would like to hear. So I think that is a serious problem that you also need to face too, and that's the solution that I'm proposing.
Thank you very much for coming on GBS television. We appreciate for your time. I hope that next time please come again on GBS TV so that we can talk more about world politics, world economy.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you very much. Thank you, our viewers, for being with us on GBS television. Until next time we meet, please stay tuned.